Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. Today I have with me a very special guest. Her name is Hope. Hope has a message that will give other people hope, I hope. So, Hope, could you please tell the audience about yourself and why you're here today?
Absolutely. My name is Hope Reger. I'm in Ohio and I live with my husband, Mike. And we have two sons, Brian is 31 and Justin is forever 19. I have two grandbabies that I adore more than anything in the whole world. They're 9 and 6. And then I work for a financial institution and have for about 25 years now as a talent coordinator.
Okay. Now, um, you have a program that you are offering people. It is a grief peer support group. Could you explain to us what led you to do this?
Absolutely. My story starts a little over 4 years ago. November 16th, I received a knock at the door, and I opened the door at 6:30 in the morning to two police officers. And at the time, as a mother, it never dawned on me this was going to be bad news. I knew that I had a 19-year-old boy who was fearless. And then my first thought was, what has this child done? And why are the cops at my place? Right? Like, what trouble has he gotten into? And they asked me if I was Justin's mom, and I said yes. And again, it didn't dawn on me that they were going to relay anything horrible or horrific. And they just handed me a piece of paper and said, this person's trying to get a hold of you. They want to reach out to you and to call them as soon as possible. And so I said, okay, you didn't know what it was about. And they said they didn't know what it was about. So I closed the door and I went upstairs and I was thinking, gosh, that's weird, right? And I was thinking, if it was something horrible, they would have told me right then and
Right.
there. And so I dialed the phone number, and the person on the other line said Greene County Coroner. And that 10 seconds, or that 5 seconds, or that 3 seconds, right then and there, my whole world changed. It changed from the moment those words I that I was not expecting. I was in complete shock, as you can imagine. And I always tell everybody there's that before hope, that before that phone call hope, and there's that after phone call hope. And he went on to tell me that Justin had, he was living with a roommate at the time. There's two roommates, two gentlemen that he lived with, and they got into the two of them, Justin and the other roommate, got into a physical altercation. It first started verbal, and then it became a physical altercation where, punches were thrown, and it got way too far. Justin did not hold any kind of concealed weapons or had any knives or bats or any kind of weapons whatsoever, but the other gentleman had a gun. Justin had him against the wall, from what I understand, and they were throwing punches back and forth. And the gentleman pulled a gun and shot Justin in the chest, and he was instantly killed. So
Oh,
when I received that information from the coroner, as you can imagine, I was in shock. So from that point, it was around Christmas time. So you just sort of, it was Thanksgiving, it was November, it was Thanksgiving, it was Christmas. And we just got through the holidays. I don't even remember the holidays. Um, and then in the early part of January and February, I was reaching out for any help. I didn't know where to go. Nobody in my life had really ever passed, besides, grandma, who had a long life. And so I never had dealt with any kind of tragedy or any kind of thing. And this is, my life. He's my son. And work had given me some opportunities for counseling and things like that. So I reached out to a Christian based grief group that had taught me some amazing things. I didn't grow up in the church.
okay.
I mean, we knew about God, right? But that was we didn't attend Sunday service or anything like that. And so I was like a fish out of water in this grief group. But they were so kind and so compassionate to show me and tell me things about God. But I was damn angry, right? I was not happy with God whatsoever. Um, I was so mad. He took my son, right? And we were good people. We're nice people. We don't do anything horrible or but terrible. But he took Justin, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't understand. And so they guided me through some of the some of the word, and I kept thinking there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a purpose that I'm going through this. And I told everybody in that grief group, which was more educational versus sort of like the groups where we sit and have support, like talking. And I felt like that was more beneficial to me. But anyways, on the way home, from that grief group, I just said, God, what is this? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you putting me through hell? Why did you take my son? Why, what is my purpose? And as sure as we're talking here or on the radio or something, I heard just be kind. And I thought to myself, what the heck does that mean? Right. That's my purpose. You just want me to be kind. I can be kind. I know how to be kind, and so I volunteered, and I paid it forward. And a great story I've told is I've had somebody behind me. You pay it forward and you pay for somebody behind you. And I was so nervous the first time I did it. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was just a little coffee shop, but we were in the drive-through, and I knew I could make a beeline out the drive-through. And so I look up and I tell the person, the cashier, that I want to pay for the person behind me. And his name tag read Justin, which is my son's
Oh,
name.
yes, yes.
So chills, I'm crying. This guy's probably like, lady, get out of the way, So that was my first experience of being kind and volunteering and going through all that, which led me to last year with COVID. And I knew I wanted to write a book or, do speaking or something. And as I've learned over the years of how to handle my grief and how to deal with grief, I knew that I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. And so last June, when COVID hit, and COVID was death in numbers every single day. That's what we're
Yes.
seeing. Every single day on TV is this death toll or that death toll, or, and I was like, this is horrible. And this adds a whole nother layer of grief on top of the grief. So I wanted to start something which I thought was would be beneficial and helpful and my purpose. And so I began Grief to Hope, which
Okay.
is a virtual grief peer group that I started.
Okay. Now, outside of this tragedy, it seems like you found a great bit of positivity through the church, through the group. So you got this positivity, and it's inside you, and you're having good days with it. But what about those bad days? Even though you got this good stretch, because we always tell the story of, oh, I picked everything back up, but we never tell a story about the time that we dropped a few things that we picked back up. So how did you take care of yourself after you had gotten this positivity and you kind of got a little low here and there? How did you do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Grief is, I describe grief as a heartbeat monitor. You have those high peaks and low peaks, and then you have sort of a law where, it's everyday kind of thing. And they still happen. And it's as the years progress on, I have that law a little bit longer. But anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas, when songs come on, smells. And for whatever reason, whenever I see somebody walking, I don't know why, because Justin never walked anywhere a day in his life. But whenever I see anybody walking, I feel like it's Justin, or it reminds me of Justin. And when I deal with that, the best way that I can describe it is I know today's today, but I know tomorrow is going to be different, and whatever I make of it. And if it's another hard day, then I know the next day is going to be better. And so you just have to keep believing and trusting that that you're going to get moving through it. Like I always say, keep living strong, just keep moving forward. And that's all, baby steps, baby steps.
Okay. Now, After your son's passing and all this stuff, how did you build up these qualities that you probably had inside yourself before? Like, how did you build them up? Because I understand you, like I said, we went through the whole formality of that. You went to the church support group and it helped you out. But how did you build up these qualities? Because I always bring it back to sports because that's the best way you can relate emotional things. You know, certain athletes become certain type of people because of certain circumstances. So inside this circumstance, well, we won't call it a circumstance. We'll just call it what it is, a tragedy. How did you get some of these new qualities that you may have had or may not have had?
So as I told you, there's the before the call and after the call. But the before the call, I was always positive, happy, sunshine, roses, rainbows. For the most part, I always had this positive outlook on life, and always like very, very determined to make things great, right? Very determined to, no matter what circumstance, happens, that I can turn it around. And when this happened, I was like, whoa, I can't turn this around. Like, I cannot fix this. And as a planner and a person that just wants everything to be happy and joyous all the time, this was a slap in my face. This was like, here you go, Hope, see if you can figure this out. And as it's taken me a long time, but one thing that I've always thought of is I lost Justin, right?
Hmm.
I didn't want to lose hope. I didn't want to lose hope in me on top of who I was. So I knew I'd never be the same Hope again, but I wanted to be better than that person because now I had a reason to live. Now I had that purpose. And by gosh, honoring my son every single day, by saying his name and doing this work is amazing. And it's even better than the hope was before.
Okay, so a good way to say it is that at one point you were two dimensional. That's a flat plane, and now you become three dimensional, and you stepped a step further, and you went into the fourth dimension where you're interacting more with that 3D form that you've taken on. So I definitely can go and get with that. Now
I love that.
let's get down to this. Grief to Hope, your program.
Yeah.
Explain to us. We know how it got its start, and I apologize about how it started, but you carrying on your son Justin's name with Grief to Hope. What's the first day like inside your program?
So it's a really, really cool program. It's, if I do say so myself, I created something that I wanted to, for anybody to come and be authentic, right? So it's a 7-week program. We meet once a week for an hour via Zoom. It's virtual. You can come, you can hang on the phone. You don't have to say a word. You can just sit there and listen. And what I do is I start out with my story. The first week we do is an introduction about me and my story and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And then I try to introduce anybody that wants to be introduced and tell their story. And then I have main topics. So each week after that, for the 7 weeks, we have main topics that we talk about. For example, and I spell out the word grief, is G would be gift of time. So our first week after the introduction is called gift of time. And it talks about, how we're rushed when we are in grief, or how people expect us to be the same person 2 weeks after it happens, or 2 years after it happens, and people don't understand how grief works and the eves and the flows, and so we try to talk about that. We talk about just anything revolves around time, and like how time is a gift sometimes. Like I've been in it for 4.5 years, but a lot of people may have only just begun in their journey, like 6 months, 3 months. We have all different levels of people that come in and where they're at in their grief, and we just share, and we're honest, and it's raw conversation between the group. And it's basically, you can sort of relax your shoulders and be comfortable and say whatever's on your mind. And a lot of times it's about just knowing that they totally get what you're going through. And that's the biggest thing, right? Like, I
Yes, it
want to
is.
know that you know exactly what I feel when I say, somebody asked me how many kids I have. To the normal person that's never been through grief or had a child loss, that is a very simple question. But when you ask somebody that's grieving a son or daughter and you ask them how many children they have, there's like a million thoughts that go through our mind. Well, should I say one, or if I say two, am I going to be hurting the other two? If I say three, am I, it's so hard. But that's the kind of stuff we talk about, is like what how to approach these kind of things and how to tell people. So the rest of the program spells out grief. We have receive, help, and inspire, and then we do a tribute. We talk about expectations, and then the last one is to hope. And so our last 7 weeks, or the last week of the 7, is we talk about moving forward. How are you going to move forward? What's your next step? And a lot of times that next step is, I just want to go to the grave and like actually go to the grave, right? Like, I don't want to sit in my car. I just want to go to the grave. So we're talking, it may not be write a book and create grief to hope. It may be, I want to listen to this song, right? And not cry, or I want to go up and go through his things, or just where you go. And then we take a break for a couple weeks, and then we come back, and a lot of people repeat it. I have a lot of people that come back because it's always different, right?
Yes, it is. It sounds like it is. So let me ask you this real quick. One thing that we like to do is plug on social media where they can meet you and greet and then become part of this group. So where can they find you?
Absolutely. I'm Hope Reger on Facebook, and then I have Grief to Hope. It's the number 2. Hope is on Facebook as well as Instagram, and then in LinkedIn. And then we have, our website is www.grief, the number 2, hope support.com. And in that website, you can actually click on to send me an email if you just want to know about me and my story, or if you have any questions with Grief to Hope whatsoever. Feel free to link that.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna pick you up here on LinkedIn while we're talking about it. I just did. All right.
Absolutely.
Inside these focus groups, and this is one thing I've always wanted, or we'll call it a support group. I call it a focus group,
No,
but
you're fine.
it's kind of a set of both. Um, how do you contain all that raw emotion? Because I'll give an example. I had a tragedy happen to me less than 2 years ago, and it was one of those things where it was one of those make or break. It was actually to a degree a spouse. So something like that, you either have to develop a coping mechanism, could be the podcasting,
Yeah.
or or you have certain support that helps you get through things and you come out a different person like you have. So how do you handle all these raw emotions inside this group that you get from people? Because some people, like me, I wanted to be by myself. I didn't want a lot of people around. It was certain people I'm glad that wrapped their arms around me, but it was just certain people I just, because of their vibe, I could just feel that it wasn't, they weren't right for me at the moment. So please stay away. So how do you handle all that, inside this group?
I think that's an awesome question. It's hard because a lot of times when what Grief to Hope is there's a lot of tragedy. We have somebody that lost a son, and then 6 months later lost his daughter in a horrific, it's just unimaginable what these people go through. And what I try to do is just listen. That's all. They just want to be heard. Tears, of course, are going to be there. Thoughts and emotions are going to be there, and everybody sort of, it's so amazing because it sort of becomes a family, and we talk as a family. And when other people are talking and you feel like you want to help them and fix it, when you're grieving, that doesn't work. You can't fix it. I can't fix what they're going through. All I can do is be there to listen and to offer support and to say, you know what, I experienced that exact same thing. Or another person is going through this, like you said, like with suicide. There's so many different waves and flows, and with every death, I say, is equal. Like, people come on my group, and they're like, my mom died, but that's sort of the circle of life kind of thing, and your son died, that's way worse, right? And I try to let them know, absolutely, every single death counts, every single grief counts, and there's no levels of importance or severity. your mom means just as much as my son. Is it the different kind of level? Yes, there's different levels, but there's not different
Severities.
severities. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's, like I said, like COVID, having a COVID death, it puts a different level on things. And not being able to be there at the hospital if they pass, or not being able to have a service. And that puts a whole nother level on things.
Okay. Now, um, you got this group going. You've ran a few that have been truly successful. What would you tell a person right now that's on the fence about coming to your group? And I'm going to give you the example of on the fence. On the fence, some people will be like, "Oh, I want to do this. I may not want to do this." But we know inside tragedy, and even me, I'm a very hardened person. I am so technical that I have specific people that I know that can handle certain parts of my emotional load. So I don't know if I would actually come to, not saying you're a stranger, but would come to someone that's a stranger and give them this emotional load, because I don't know if they're going to be able to handle it. Because like I said, we're not talking about the severity of what happened in any of these deaths, but the actual emotional turmoil that you have with it. So, how would someone that's on the fence be comfortable with coming to you?
Absolutely. I love that question too. Everybody has a story to tell. And as a podcast
I
host,
guess yes.
yeah, podcast host, that everybody has a story to tell that's going to touch somebody. So that's what I tell everybody that is on the fence to coming, is saying, you know what? One, you can come and just listen. You don't have to come and share. And we had somebody that listened for 7 weeks. And then that following next series came and talked. She felt comfortable talking. And so we were like, yeah, we were so excited because that was a big step for her. And so if you just want to come and listen and then get comfortable with it, that's probably the biggest way to sort of let yourself, your guard down, but also to know that your story, no matter what that story is, can touch any person at any time. You never know who needs to hear your story. So even though you may not be over that that ease, those flows, and that heartbeat monitor of grief, and you may be on a down that day, I encourage you to be on the phone, because you never know what story you're going to hear, right? So
True.
that's really where it is. It's just, share your story or listen to somebody's story.
Okay, and that's a good selling point to get people involved. Now we're gonna flip this over a little bit. I pay homage to 2020. Everybody knows, if you listen to the show, some people like John Stossel, because he's a comedian. I always like Diane Sawyer and Barbara Walters. Diane Sawyer had a certain way she interviewed. Barbara Walters hit you with hard hitting questions that you're never prepared for, but at the end of it, it justified who you are. So here we go, real quick. We're going, like I said, John Stossel. He's out of the picture because we don't need the comedic stuff, because we've already had a good laugh here or there before we even got on air. So here's Diane Sawyer question for you, and this is just one thing. You've gotten self care out of this, okay? It's a
Mhm.
way. It's a way for you to heal while helping others heal.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, what is a major factor that drives you to continuously do this? Because some people would do this for a little bit of time, okay? And they would continuously bridge off and do it a little bit more here and there. But eventually you get to a point where your self care is kind of, taken care of to a degree. The grief is not, but your actual personal self care. So, what drives you to continuously do this?
um my son, honoring my son. There couldn't be any but I have the biggest fan right now in heaven, and he's telling me, go mom, or he's saying quit embarrassing me, one or the other. But he's telling me just do it, just spread it, and God's telling me this is my purpose, and I really feel that way. I really feel like it is my purpose. And I've always said grief to hope is bigger than me. It's way bigger than me. And I have to earn it every single day. And I have to earn being out there and being in everyone's, social media posts, and try to say, pick me, come with me, let's just hang out. Let's just, this is so much easier together. Right. And that's what drives me every day. I mean, it has to be. And getting to say his name so many times a week is pretty awesome too.
And in that way, it reaffirms our okay. Now here comes a Barbara Walters question. All
Okay.
right, so at the end of the day, we're all influencers and we're all helping everybody in the world. And even when you help someone through a group, you help yourself at a certain point. But when has it become a hard period for you to help others? Because we all can do it. Our cup running full for so long, and then it gets halfway empty.
Yeah.
So when it gets down there to where it's below half empty, how do you rebuild that? How do you stay focused on hope and get hope to have all this energy to give everyone else hope?
I love it. I say working out, not that it's fun, and running is not fun. But when I'm running, I listen to motivational speakers. I do a lot of that. I listen to one of the quotes I hear is, you have two dates with a dash. What's your dash going to mean? And I love that. And I'm like, what's my dash going to mean? And it motivates me. Absolutely. There's times where I feel like I'm not being successful, or things didn't turn out the way that I thought they would, or, I'm struggling. And so I really, really believe that if you work your butt off and you believe in what you're doing, and you believe that you add value to others, that you can keep going. And I don't want to let my son down, but I don't want to let myself down either, because I think it's just a passion and a purpose. See, I'm lucky enough that, it's like the gold medal, right? So, like you were talking about with sports, like you have that goal out there. And I know Grief to Hope is way bigger than me. And like I said, and I have to earn it. And so you just keep pushing, man. You just keep pushing till um, you hit that mark, and then you set another mark to hit. And that's what I always have done my whole entire life. Is like, okay, I made it here, but I need to push a little bit more. So
Okay.
yeah.
Now, Hope, I always give everybody a testimonial about who they are and what they do. And these are compliments, no negativity in it, because we live in a world of positivity right now, because we went through one of the most negative periods in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: you have a virtual group peer support group that you are helping people in light of the fact that you have a really, really, like you said, you're not putting a severity on the tragedies, but to lose a child, I have a son, so I don't even, like, my heart goes out to you. um but here's the thing that I want to say: you are doing the world a blessing. There's so many people, and I am one of these people, that you could have just got cold. You could have walked away. You could have just said, I'm not going to be one with the world. I'm going to wait till I'm better and come back. And I'm just going to still be about me. I'm not going to spread a message that I interpreted somewhere. But you found a message, you interpreted it was to be kind, and you're doing that. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the fact that you have the tenacity, you have the strength to go beyond yourself. Not saying you probably didn't do that before, but you even stated earlier that there was an after. The after you is now the better you. Not everybody gets to experience the better side of themselves. Some people just stay stagnant all their lives and don't have things that change them and mold them a certain way. So take that with more than just a grain of salt. Take that with like your heart, as big as it is, and let that be the thing that you use to keep driving you to do what you do. Because, like I said, there's a lot of people that will not do what you do. There are a lot of people that will be like me. They will be selfish. They will take their stuff and go about their business and try to figure out what they need to do until they get better.
I
And with you,
appreciate
and if I had your group when I probably would have came out of my rut a whole lot faster. So so
that.
so once again, I want to thank you for what you do. I'd like you to let the audience know where they can reach you again, and then I'd like you to give a nice shout out to the people that have helped you along the way, because everything's like Legos. We have to keep building and building. We never stop with these Legos, and you know, but between all of us, there's some part that we do most of it, but we have other people in the background. So could you give them a shout out?
Absolutely. So, my husband is amazing, and bless his heart, has been on every single episode, listening in, and after tells me how great I am. Even though I'm like, oh, I don't know. My husband is my world, and I love him so much, and he's just incredible. And then my friends are my biggest supporters, and they push me, and I always tell them, that I couldn't do it without friends and their encouragement each and every day. And then, of course, excuse me, my son, both of them are my light, and they keep me going each and every day. So,
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for being on West Virginia on Commonplace. One last thing that we do need to do, please plug your social media so everyone can know where to find you. And at the end of this, when this episode is published and out and released, there will be inside the show notes all types of information so that you can get in touch with Hope. You can get over to her website. You can get over to her Facebook. So I will let you know once again where you can find her.
I am Hope Reger at Facebook, and then Grief, the number 2, Hope on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm really trying. I'm not very hip, but I'm really trying with Instagram. And then Grief to Hope as well. And then the website, please, 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 you can utilize the website. We're going to have some newsletters coming out until we start the series in September, and that's www. Grief, the number 2, hope support.com.
All right. And then most important thing, when does the next group actually start?
Thank you for asking. September 9th, 2021. So here soon.
All right. So everybody, if you need to get in touch with her throughout the summer, make sure you reach out to her at the numerous places that she said. And once again, this is West Virginia Uncommonplace, and I am signing off.